to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We will open with public comment. Is there any public comment? Yes.
Tim Ravendall, citizen, just relaying a message here that was asked to be submitted to the commission for the record. I'll quickly read this and then hand it to you. I only got the one copy, so. Commissioners Mike Delger, Laura Obert, Delmer Fulford convene at 9:00 a.m. to participate in a telephone conference call on, I don't remember. Okay, anyway, the call with Brent Burton, Sharon Walker, concerned the possible sale of Silos KOA and the transfer of the contract for services between JSJ and Broadwater County. No decision was made. The call ended at 9:40. The next regular meeting is scheduled for June 4th, 2019 at 1 p.m. Considering the meeting was 40 minutes long, the minutes are seriously lacking in any detail. The citizens of Broadwater County are entitled to a more comprehensive idea of the content of conversations, and these minutes show an appalling disrespect for the citizens and voters. I recommend a revision of those minutes that will fully cover all items discussed during those 40 minutes. I further request a copy of this letter to be included in the records of the minutes to this meeting. Again, shoot the messenger, but I wanted to deliver that.
Who's it from, please?
That's from Cheryl Campbell and Cheryl and Earl Campbell. I'm sorry, I should have done that first.
I do also have a comment. I do want to share with you, I want to formally thank Tom Helm for building steps for the canisters at the after hours access point for all of our canister sites.
Oh,
So I do have a thank you card that I got for him. I will bring it by this afternoon and have you sign it as well, if you would. So I really appreciate the fact that he just saw a need and he took care of it, so.
oh, so people can get up on the steps to throw
Yes,
their,
to throw their waste in the can.
very cool,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
I think he is a shining example of our awesome people
Yes.
in this county.
Yes.
Kudos to Tom.
Yes.
We will go on to our 11 a.m. typo. That's supposed to be 10 a.m.
Okay. All right.
Mary Hendrickson, personnel needs, job description, GPS, GIS decision.
Okay, so what I have here, I just kind of roughed out the duties and responsibilities for an administrative assistant. So
Thanks,
I
Mary.
didn't get a chance to staple it together yet, but you'll see it's quite extensive. You know, for the last year or so, I've been doing my own admin stuff, and what am I trying to say? Sorry. I could really use some assistance. I could use some assistance from someone, at least part-time, to do some administrative duties, filing, writing, drafting letters for me based on letters that I've done in the past, putting the claims together. The claims are probably one of my biggest tasks that I do. And I've tried to do them, you know, once a month, and I get stacked up and it takes me a couple of days to get them all done. So I'm back to trying to do them every week. But at the same time, taking care of the issues associated with solid waste, roads, and weeds and mosquitoes. Weeds and mosquitoes has not been a problem. Jessica is an awesome employee. I'm very happy with her. And we do meet weekly so that she can let me know what's going on, and I can give her feedback on tasks that are either being done or need to be done. But the biggest time sink that I have is roads and solid waste right now. Solid waste primarily because of the change we made. Still working out some of the kinks, but we haven't had very many. We did have someone tear down a fence at Winston yesterday and got into the site, dumped a bunch of garbage into the metal can and in front of the metal can. And took us, yesterday, probably 8 hours of combined staff time to clean it up yesterday, and then Mike Myers and I went out there this morning and spent about an hour and a half finishing things up out there. So those are the sorts of things that, you know, when things like this happen, that I get called to take care of. So I put this together because what I envision this person doing is answering my calls, checking the voicemail, setting up the filing system, again, putting together letters, putting the claims together for my signature, just kind of general, and doing the invoices for solid waste, actually. That's another big one that I haven't had a whole lot of time to do. I have had one of my attendants do that because I have had one of the attendants up at the transfer station a couple days a week, so that we have someone there in the office if people come in. So she's been able to get those things done. So that's kind of what I'm looking for, is someone that can do that, can screen calls for me, because there are other things that I need to do in my position as Public Works Director. So this is what I would envision for an admin person. I don't know if you have any questions on that at all.
Would you also have her do the minutes for the weed board? Would you have an issue with the weed board doing, no, they don't have anybody to do minutes?
Right. So we could, and I could have someone do the minutes for the solid waste board also. Typically, those are things that I have been doing, is putting those minutes together for the board members for solid waste. Jessica, I believe, has been doing that for the weed board. And that person wouldn't necessarily have to go to the meeting. We could record it and they could transcribe the recording. So that's how I would envision that. And that, it doesn't take very long to do. For me, it's just been trying to find the time. And I know now for Jessica, because it's busy, for her it'll be the same thing, trying to find the time to transcribe what was recorded during the last meeting. I'm also looking for someone to scan and put together the approved approach permits so that I can have an index of addresses that we have approved approach permits on, so that I can then put together the process to deal with approaches that have had no permit and have no culvert onto the county road. And that's an issue that I would like to deal with. Late summer, early fall. I would have liked to have done it sooner, but again, it's just finding the time to do that.
Another, you know, it may be in here, but another thing that this person could do is double check to make sure that everybody is being assessed.
Yes.
It's been a long-standing problem.
Yes.
The 1 year, Brian was able to dive into it, he found it 45,000-ish
Mm-hmm.
of unassessed
Yes.
solid waste fees, and then some of those were dropped off again. If we could have somebody consistently looking at that, and that is,
Mm-hmm.
that could be an assistant position,
Yes.
I believe that it would make a big
It
difference.
would make a big difference. And I'll tell you what, with the permit system that we've gone to, we have found a lot of them too, because people need a permit.
Yeah.
And
Just kind of, so far, how many have been returned, people that? Quite a few?
I bet 40, I
Okay.
bet I have 40 or so.
Okay. Out of those people that, the ones that have been returned, how many are called to say I didn't get my tag?
Probably 5,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
So now it's a matter of just going back and searching through voting records to see if we have a better address for people, seeing if those people actually reside at that location. Some of them that have been returned, those people don't live at that address anymore.
Sure.
So, and I've gone back through the tax records. I use the tax records to get the addresses, the names and addresses. So if our tax records, and I know that the Department of Revenue came in a couple weeks ago, I sat down and talked to them. They were trying to do an update with Doug at that time, there was a problem with that, I'm not sure, and I haven't had a chance to circle back with Doug to see if they were ever able to update his records that he has. But that's where we're at. And I know that when they get their tax statements back, they have other databases that they'll look through to try to get correct addresses,
Sure.
so.
That sounds good. So this position here is gonna be a part-time person, right?
Well, yes, I could use someone, I could keep them busy for up to 30 hours a week.
All right. And you're planning to pay for this out of roads and solid waste?
Roads and solid waste, yes,
Okay.
yes.
And you feel your budget can support that right now?
I do, especially with the additional assessments that we've gotten. Because I do anticipate more. I'm seeing the construction that's going on. I do want to talk to Doug and to DOR about kind of amending our process to get the solid waste assessments on there, on those homes, when they're built, rather than waiting another year to do that. And Department of Revenue is going to give the county the ability to put the solid waste assessment on the tax bill. Most counties do that themselves. Broadwater County is one of the few that has Department of Revenue do that. And I don't know why it was set up like that in the first place. I do not know. But they would love to give us that, they would love to give us the ability to do that.
And that actually would probably be better for us. right?
It would be, yes,
Okay.
yes.
And would Doug do that, or would you two work together on that?
We could work together on it. They said that they would give me the authority to do that. I would certainly work with Doug's office up there, and make sure that when we have a deed recorded, that information, gets sent to me, so I can be sure that that assessment is on there.
The other coordination that I think that needs to take place, and we can probably have this talk with Doug as well, is I know that some of those envelopes that were sent out with people that have been deceased.
Yes,
And, they have that information, it's just a matter
yes,
of going to the person next to them and getting it.
right,
So I
Yes.
think we need to get that sorted out.
yes, yep. And I would like to put a process together so that we have one in place for whoever, is in this position in the future. So,
Okay.
would help a lot. So, I do feel my budget could support it. Have I gone through my budget right now? No, I haven't. But I do know that my expenditures were, in both cases, were much less than my projected revenues for both roads and solid waste. So, I can get that information together. I just honestly have not had time to do that the last couple of days, so.
Mary, you mentioned up to 30 hours
Yes,
a week. So, I'm envisioning maybe a 50-50 split.
yes,
I'd leave that to you. My question would be though, or is, could you recruit someone at part-time? Do you think you could get somebody, a quality person with all these skills with a
I
part-time
do,
position?
I do,
Okay,
yes.
and would you be thinking you set up to 30, that's
Up to
the
30,
health
yeah.
insurance line?
Yes.
Would you be thinking about keeping them right under that or right over that?
Well, I would, what I wanna do is I wanna look at the budget and see if it would support someone at 32 hours a week with benefits. That actually, as you know, is an additional expense
Right,
that we have. I'm trying to keep expenses down right now. That's why I was looking at 30 hours or less a week. For now, this is a position that I would envision at some point in the future, and I'm talking, maybe a year from now, a year and a half from now, is having a full-time position of an administrative assistant.
So here's the only thing I want to comment on that is, you know, we get criticized a lot about growing our government
Mm-hmm,
and full-time employees when our budgets are tight.
mm-hmm,
So
right,
keep that in mind.
right, I understand that,
Okay.
yes, I do. I do honestly see the need for this, though, I do. I am doing Dana's old job plus, Brian's old job plus, and over weeds and mosquitoes, just like I said, Jessica does a fine job, but there are things that are my charge, and that, so my job is big, and just trying to find the time to do this in a timely manner and deliver the quality that I desire to deliver to the county and to the commissioners. It would be, I could see having help to do these administrative tasks would free up my time to then provide more quality information.
You know, the other part of that is, and it's a discussion for another time, but we need to talk with the people you feel are gonna be your lead people in those areas.
Yes,
You need to be taking on some more of that responsibility.
and I agree, yes, I do. And I've had that conversation with them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I think what you just said is 100% right on. So you are doing the job of 3 supervisors we had previously,
Mhm,
and we took 3 high-paid supervisor positions, made 1,
mhm,
and now we're talking about a lower-paid, very much lower-paid
Mhm.
administrative assistant.
mhm,
So it's 3 high-paid conversed with 1 high-paid and 1
Mhm.
low-paid.
mhm,
So I think that's important to keep in mind.
mhm.
As far as you said, 30 hours or less, the line is 30,
Yes,
and that's the ACA and our Teamsters
okay.
that determine that. So for part-time, I would say do 28,
Mhm.
that way there's a little bit of a cushion.
Mhm,
The fact that you have 400 hours of comp time
mhm,
says that you need some help,
mhm.
and it says that the cost on the county is not as wisely spent with you doing administrative work as we could be spending the taxpayers'
Yes.
money.
And I agree,
Yeah,
I agree, you pay me too much to do my filing.
right, yeah, plain and simple.
Yes,
So, yeah, if you think 28 hours will work for you,
yes,
I would support that. And perhaps during the interview process, we can let somebody know, the applicants know, that the future plan
mhm,
would probably be seeing this as a full-time position in the
Mhm.
future.
yes,
So, and if 28 hours is sufficient, great.
mhm,
And I would hope that the minutes for the weed board, I like your idea of recording.
mhm,
That way we're not paying somebody comp time to show up extra.
right,
But that should come out of the weed budget.
okay,
So, yeah, those are my only thoughts. I don't think there's a choice. And again, you know, we took 3 full-time high-paid
Mhm.
jobs and created 1.
mhm. And there's been a lot going on in each of those departments too, in the last year and a half.
Yeah.
So, transitioning and then some of the changes that we've made. So, yes, thank you.
Are we gonna talk about the GPS GIS?
Yes,
Portion of
so I have my kickoff meeting with Public scheduled for Friday. It'll be Nicole and I, and then the Public's folks. They're gonna need to have Nicole there so that we can talk about the GIS system that we have, because she's gonna need to upload some data to them for that, to help this work. So I am still looking at a seasonal employee for roads, just to locate culverts right now. I want culvert location, I would like culvert markers, and I want the size of the culverts. I need to know what's out there. That I envision taking a good 6 weeks to do that work. If I have one person doing that in a vehicle, just going up and down the roads, we should be able to get that done in about 6 weeks. And then that information is what I would put into the PubWorks software so that we have a layer then, we have a culvert layer in that, which I think is really, really important to have.
Does that PubWorks now for your bridge inventory, does it have that as well? You can do your bridge inventory in there?
Yes,
And the current inventory you have now probably has GPS coordinates, or no?
I don't believe so.
Okay. So it's something else to consider.
Yes,
When that time comes.
yes. Because what I can do is the state does bridge inspections. And I know that they have that information on our bridges. And what I'd like to do is tie those inspections into the bridge layer. So I envision this PubWorks is gonna have all different sorts of layers. I want county maintained roads, I want county roads, I want public roads, I want culverts. You know, the bridges, if we can tie those inspections to the bridge, and if we scroll over there, we can see what the latest inspection report was for that.
So here when things settle down, here in the next week or two, we do need to work on our CIP.
Yes, okay,
Okay.
all right. Yes,
Okay.
that'll be good.
So when you're doing this GIS, GPS work, are you gonna also include, approaches? Or are you only gonna do those for new ones?
I could, actually, because they'll be going down county roads, thank you. I wasn't thinking that far ahead, but that's good. I have asked the road crew to keep a log of, you know, approaches off of county roads that don't have culverts. I have not followed up with them to see if they've been doing that or not.
Well, that's gonna be a big task.
It is,
Have to chisel away a little bit at
Yes.
a time.
yep.
So you're seasonal for the roads, for all the culvert work. That would be second seasonal, the first one is still gonna do the mowing, or are you gonna?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, so I am going to be putting that announcement out there for the seasonal mower. I noticed MDT is mowing today, they started their mowing, so, and we need to get out there with this sweet clover that we have going, it's getting pretty high,
yeah.
so.
So we'll need to vote to allow Mary to increase her staff by these two positions.
So the two positions will be this administrative assistant, which is a 28-hour job a week, and then the other one would be the seasonal GPS GIS, because the seasonal
Mower, we already have that.
You already have that.
Yes.
So we're adding those two.
Yes.
The GPS GIS and
Mhm.
the assistant.
Yes. And I did have Michelle go through and put together the salary for the seasonal GPS person. So she did already do that. She went through the matrix and put that together for me, so.
Excellent. In the future, if you do go to full-time with the 28 hours, you could split that. So that the health insurance would be covered half by solid waste and could be half by roads.
Okay.
Which is incorporated with the rest of the county.
Okay,
Yeah,
right.
solid waste isn't,
okay,
yeah.
all right.
So I will move that we approve Mary's request for a seasonal employee for the road department to track culverts and help input those into PubWorks for the public and for Mary's own, for the departmental knowledge.
So, I guess, how many hours are you thinking, Mary, in that, like, a week? For the GIS, GPS?
40 hours a week.
40 hours?
I would have someone doing 40 hours.
And for how long?
Probably just 6 weeks. If we start in July, because you know, we have college students out there, high school students out there, that would probably be interested in doing this. I have had some inquiries from some individuals. So, you know, I envision July through the second or third week of August before school starts back up again. So I'm just looking at 6 weeks, 40 hours a week.
Okay.
Is that gonna be, is that gonna be restrictive only to that,
The road seasonal?
for the GPS person?
Yes,
I mean, that's all we're gonna have them do?
yes,
Okay. So that's just gonna be, basically gonna be for this summer?
yes.
Okay. And once we get that file upgraded, who would upgrade that system once this person gets everything input? Like, who's gonna do?
It would be me after that point if we had everything in there. If we have new additions to that, that's something that I would be able to put in there,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
And
It's
do we
just
have-
right now, it's just building that database.
Sure. Do we have a unit? that we're gonna
No,
use?
we don't. We don't have a unit yet. Actually, I'll tell you, one thing that I've been looking at is the GPS locator on your phone.
Mhm.
It actually is reasonably accurate. I don't know that I necessarily need, if we have culvert markers out there, I don't believe that I need the accuracy that
Yeah,
Nicole and
Right.
and Sean were talking
so
about.
you're thinking down to 2 meters, that's kind of where you're at?
Yes.
Okay.
Because typically, when we do locates, when we do culvert work and locates, we'll go 30 to 40 feet beyond where we want to put it,
Mhm.
just to give us the room and to let us know where things are before we start digging.
I guess I'm just thinking, in the spring, if we need to locate that culvert for flooding purpose, whatever, this would be
Mhm.
accurate enough that we'll be able to find it,
Mhm.
that marker's
Yes,
missing for whatever reason.
yes.
So there's the motion been made to hire this seasonal for the GPS GIS position, is there a second to the motion?
I will second that motion.
So motion been made and seconded to add a seasonal employee at 40 hours a week for 6 weeks for GPS and GIS for the road department. Any further discussion? Yes, Tim?
Mr. Chairman, just a real quick question. Splitting the cost of putting on additional employees to help out with this administrative process, just a question, under this current fiscal year, the last we heard was that the solid waste department was still in the red, if you will, using that terminology. So where's the additional money really coming from if you're still and maybe you're not, I don't know. That's why I guess I asked the question. Is that department still in a deficit?
It is.
And so where's the
It
funding
is,
coming
but
from?
right now, one of my attendants, who is working up at the transfer station as an attendant during the week, is doing the work for me up at the transfer station. So she's doing the invoicing for me up at the transfer station, because I need an attendant up there when people are gone. So that was included in that whole cost associated with implementation of this plan.
Okay,
So that's where we are right now.
So is your question, Tim, for this position we're talking about right now? Yeah, this is for the road department.
well, it was mentioned that it's gonna be split between the two departments.
No.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry,
No.
there's two different subjects. We started two different and now we're on one. Okay, I apologize. So the solid waste has got the GPIS location.
No,
No.
that's roads.
No.
Roads locates culverts.
Okay,
Solid waste doesn't have culverts.
so I guess maybe I'll re-ask the question when you get back to the solid waste needing more help.
Okay.
So the motion
Mixing
made and seconded to add the seasonal person to roads for GPS GIS for a period of 6 weeks at 40 hours a week. Any further discussion? Have a motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same, motion carries. Now we will go on to the administrative assistant for solid waste, roads, weeds, and mosquitoes. This is a 28-hour position.
And then I think to address Tim's question, nothing that we do is one-dimensional. So there's a big picture, and each little piece adds in to fill in the big picture, and that's what we're doing with the whole budget. There's a reason it takes 4 to 6 months, is it's not a one-dimensional snapshot. It is an entire process that brings us to the end point. That this is one piece of that large picture. So, it's just more complicated than one-dimensional.
If I might follow up on that, Mr. Chairman, just real quick. And that's why I'm asking the question, because the public really is in a need to make sure that we have all the pieces of that puzzle so we fully understand. And so that's why the question is asked. Sometimes we don't ever see that information at the meeting or after.
I would challenge that you speak for Tim. You already said it earlier, you're speaking as a citizen, you do not speak for the rest of the citizens, just for Tim. I would appreciate it if you would, when you're reporting, tell the whole story. Haven't seen that, but you do just speak for Tim.
Well, we'll keep trying to keep the information flowing. Thank you.
So I have no more questions on this.
So this is
issue.
a 28-hour position for essentially public works assistance for help with road, solid waste, weed, and mosquito.
Yes, because for mosquito meetings, this person would probably take those minutes too. And I would also suggest that this be 28 hours per week max,
Okay,
so that we don't run into an issue
You
where
bet.
we have to pay for health insurance for 1 month.
you
Again,
bet,
big counting nightmare, that
you
is
bet.
an issue.
So they can do both weeds and mosquito,
Yes,
the minutes for those meetings?
yes.
That'll kind of solve a little bit of issue on the
Yeah.
weed board. Okay, that's
Yep.
cool.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so is there a motion for such a position?
I'm still thinking about some questions I need to ask you.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
On this position. You said your current budget can support it, right?
Yes,
Okay, without having any additional expenditures.
correct.
Okay.
Yes, my projected revenue for solid waste was even more than my projected expenditures for solid waste, based on the changes that we've implemented. And I do want to let you know for the record that we have only been hauling 3 loads of waste to the Lewis and Clark County landfill since this was implemented. So for the last 3.5 weeks, we've been at 3 loads a week, as opposed to 5 to 7 to 8 this time of year, last year.
And what is the cost roughly per trip? Can you put that into numbers? The tipping fee, wear and tear on the vehicle, the personnel time? So
The tipping fee is probably, just trying to do some math in my head, $500 tipping fee. And then travel in the truck to and from, let's see, what is it, 30 miles, 60 miles, 180, $200, and then staff time, 1, 2, 70, so at 2, 5, 7, 800, $800 a trip, roughly. I think that's a pretty good guesstimate.
So you're saving 3 times that per week.
Yes,
Well, that puts
yes,
it in a different realm.
yes.
Great.
It is working.
And this person that you're moving in here is actually already in your budget as an attendant, right?
Yes,
Just for solid waste.
yes. I have two 28-hour positions as an attendant right now, and then everyone else is 12 hours, 12 to 14 hours a week. And I do have one floater, because my plan was to have everyone work 3 weeks and just rotate people in and out every month. So, and that's it's not only a cost savings, but it's also, it gives people a break. I don't know that everyone really likes to work weekends. My attendants are very happy, they're glad to be doing what they're doing a great job. So, I just thought I would rotate people in and out, just to give them a break. We all need a break from time to time, so.
Would you decrease any hours for an attendant or replace an attendant with this position?
I would say it depends. It depends whether or not one of the attendants would apply for an admin assistant job. If so, right now I have enough still to have certain people at certain sites. So, without maybe necessarily having a break. And if it was one of my attendants that applied for this and was successful, what I would do is if someone needed a break, if someone was gone, sick, what have you, I would have them step in and fill that position while that person was gone. So that I wasn't looking at trying to pull staff from somewhere else, since we're open on the weekends. And I need, 5 people available, 4 people available on the weekends to do that work. So, yeah.
Okay.
Is there a motion to approve this position then?
Yeah, I'll make that motion, that we approve the assistant for roads and solid waste, 28 hour a week.
Is there a second?
Yes, I'll second the motion.
Motion's been made into the second to approve the 28-hour public works assistant position. Any further discussion? Yes, Tim?
Just a real quick question, what is the current balance of the solid waste department fund?
I have honestly not run a cash balance report for probably a month, Tim. So I'll be doing that today in preparation for my solid waste board meeting tomorrow.
Okay, that's why the question is asked,
Okay.
of where we're at this particular time with moving forward.
Right.
You don't have the answers, it's hard to put the puzzle together. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries.
Thank you. I'm around for anything else, Sarah? We're good? Just those? All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mary.
Enjoy your afternoon.
You too.
There you go. Nice.
Let's see, fiscal year 20 county budget spending analysis, revenue analysis, field allocation review.
I do not. I didn't have time to grab one. We were wondering if we want to have Debbie, since she's here, if she's here.
Is she here? Yeah.
Join us.
I'll go with it.
All right. know what? I can get you an adjustment.
Oh, no, that's okay, just,
I can.
okay, all right, thank you. There you go, thank you.
You're welcome. I think so, for taking minutes.
Yeah. That's the map board, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Should be done in a couple minutes.
All right.
Are we going over ours now?
What's that?
Are we gonna go over public safety, or is that what we're starting with?
Oh, we're going over everything else,
Oh, okay.
and then we got you guys on for 12:30, but as soon as we get done with this, we can go ahead and go with it, with yours.
Yeah. We had a mistake in the worksheets that were throwing us off, so, I didn't find it until Debbie started entering everything in Black Mountain, and her and I were working together and coming up with different numbers.
Okay,
So we're not actually in the, I don't know, black, I like green for go.
okay.
We're still a little in the red, so I guess we just have to talk to you about that briefly,
Okay,
if you wanna do that now or.
we can do that now, yeah, if you want.
After Debbie and I worked back and forth yesterday together quite a bit, just really nailing down our numbers, and, we found a little glitch in the worksheet that I was using, in that one, and it was putting us off, roughly $50,000. So, yeah, so, once I changed the formula to where it was supposed to be, our numbers immediately matched up with Debbie's, and were 21,000, in the red.
Okay,
So, I guess we're looking for direction on, what you guys would like us to do. Or if you guys know of anything that's coming up. Laura, Debbie did talk to me about, the $11,000 from that,
Zerker?
from Zerker. That's not like a check coming to us, that we've known about that's there, it has to be spent on Zerker, stuff, so it's, we just haven't had the need to spend that, so it's not, we're not frivolously, let's get something, you know, so it's just been sitting there. Because it was a loan for the Zerker products, so that's the only thing it can be spent on. So I don't really know how that would help this budget, because it kind of would roll. I think the most we could do is like our Zerker payment that comes out of the 911 funds. We could say, take, you know, half of the payment here and then we'll pay the other half. So that would help the 911 fund out, but not necessarily this budget. So,
I guess a question I had, were you guys still planning to help Corey with the recent workout?
yes.
So this is something we discussed. You know, we discussed not doing that
Okay.
and funding it differently so that it works better.
The auditor.
Auditor
was
won't-
gonna frown on
You
it.
see,
And
and if you did that, that'll actually put you guys about where you need to be.
Well,
yeah.
it's not as an expense though.
Yeah,
It's not in this budget as an expense.
okay.
So it's nowhere in there is that the 19 on that, so I don't know where that would help us though, I guess,
Okay,
so. Debbie did put it into her side on that worksheet as she's working through, but it still is once you take that out, it's still that 21,000 that we're in the red, so. We did get the email from Bill Jarocki, I don't know if you guys got that.
there's someone?
He just came this morning.
This morning.
So he's got a list of all the counties and what the percentage of increase or decrease. And luckily Broward County's fifth in the state for increases. It looks like a property tax valuation. It had a 15% increase. So, which is good. I mean, it's, Madison County was actually 28. And we actually visualized a 16.47, I think, percent increase on commercial property value. So that's even better. But if that comes to fruition, I mean, that would be in and of itself, at the current 37.17 mils, that's gonna cover that 21 and change. So I don't think that our road's too steep to climb. So just from what I've seen so far, so.
So I think with that being said, I don't know that is it worth for us to go back and cut 21,000 out, or can we get a commitment from you guys to get us to where those evaluations actually come in and we're over that and then we're fine? I guess it's up to you guys on what you're expecting from us, and give me some direction so we can go back to the table and get this done with Debbie.
Where were we at with your vehicles? Did you take those out of this?
Vehicles are out, so that's a conversation we have to have. I am working with a leasing company right now that says that we'll save a lot of money, but he's working it up. But what they actually do is they would actually write us a check for our whole fleet right now.
Right.
So it would be revenue, and then it would be pretty much a set number every year. We know what to look at. And talking with the guy, he says it'll be way less than you buying 2 vehicles every single year outright. So, you know, may look like a steadier move forward with our fleet. And then what happens is then you can replace your whole fleet at once, and then you just make that payment. They do buyback and everything,
Right.
so.
It's good if you can get into that position, and the buyback, what it does is it gives you a value what your fleet is at that moment.
Yeah.
If something was to change, you know that at least your value is that amount.
Yeah.
Um,
I think the
They're
other
not gonna
thing.
lock you into a mileage thing, are they?
I hope not.
He did want to know the mileage. He said, what's your high mileage? So I told him 35,000 miles a year is probably our highest.
Okay.
So I think there is a mileage thing there, but
Yeah.
unless he just wanted to know about what we're putting on it, but I'm assuming.
That would be my only little
Yeah.
caution there.
Because once you go over that, it gets.
Yeah, but it does.
Yeah,
It does. Or that you'll find yourself in a situation where you're gonna park it and try to drive something else, you know, try to, you know what I'm talking
Yep.
about.
And I did talk to him, he was one of the vendors, I think it was Bancorp, totally chat with you, so, it's, we'll see what happens. I mean, it ain't gonna hurt, I mean, at this juncture, but if that's a way to fund a means to the end, that wouldn't be so bad.
So kind of what you need from us right now is to make a commitment that.
Commitment or direction,
Yeah.
so tell me what you want us to do and I can get back to the table, you know. I think with that email from Bill, you know, seeing what the mills look like they're gonna come in at, looks like we'll be well over what 21,000 is, so.
Well, I know you guys put a lot of hard work into this budget. In this past year, you've done well with your budget. So,
So is everything in here is figured at last year's mill and value,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So everything's at the 16, I think it's actually just at 1647,
Yeah.
without the change, but, I mean, it's, and I like that, I know it's cumbersome, but the fact is, we can get it somewhat balanced, in an aspect of using old data, you know, whatever comes up in the forefront, it's just better, so. Should make, we have the most, and that's the thing, we have the most complicated budget of everybody here, because it's an ever-evolving situation, but, you know, it's one of those that, I like Brandon's plan, I think he's done well with it, and he's worked hard and put a lot of effort into it, and I think in the end of the day, it's gonna be, I think it's gonna be a good way to go, so.
sure.
Can I ask a few questions?
Mm-hmm.
I also really appreciate the work you've done, and I know you spent a lot of hours with Bill. So, a couple years ago, and you remember this, we were told, in fact, we got the numbers, we had a 9% increase. I think Bill's very correct, but I think there's an element we need to just keep in the back of our minds. So 2 years ago, we were told we have a 9% increase.
Right.
Built the budgets around that, and then Debbie ran the numbers and realized we were losing 5 mills. The reason for that is 1510-420. Existing properties cannot grow by that amount. They can only grow by 0.5% of the last 3 years' interest, so roughly 0.5% increase. It's all they can have
Yeah.
for existing properties. So our overall increase was 3.9 because of those lost mills. This 15% increase, we have to realize there's going to be lost mills with that. And if there's not, great, we got gravy.
Yeah.
But if we don't plan on that and at least keep it in the backs of our minds, we're gonna get to a week or two before the budget's due and be scrambling.
Yeah.
So I just wanna make sure that
Well, I
that's out
think,
there as a thought.
you know, it's like the thing with Northwestern Energy, you know, the
Mhm.
last, on the 11th hour of the last day here, they get a huge thing, it just, boom, and it happens, and I think there's, Brandon and I talked about it, there's some things in there, we're pretty tight, and that's the thing, is that expenditure budget, when you look at the overall budget, 78.5% of that budget is wages.
Right.
So, trying to, I mean, you're talking 21.5% to keep things floating 24/7, 365. And that's the hard part. And so when you start looking, and I'm sitting there going, I told him this morning, I said, yeah, and Lord knows what's gonna happen in the next few weeks with our debacles with Iran and then blowing up oil tankers. You know, that can jump fuel prices through the roof if that continues to happen. You know, we have a wiggle room in that. You know, we have a little excess in the fuel budget, but I'm like, I hate to cut that and then have gas go to $4 a gallon. And then that 7,000 or whatever's in there is gonna go fairly quickly. So, and I can't just say, okay, park the cars and not do anything, close the doors, we're shut down. You know, we're not taking calls or anything else. So it's you know, 21.5% to operate 24/7, 365 is tough, and I hate to get too, I mean, we're pretty skimpy as it is. And, you know, that's where I'm a little concerned, is that if we cut it any shorter, we're gonna be cutting off our noses by our face. And it's a slippery slope, but I understand exactly what Commissioner was saying is, we just gotta, you know, we can't visualize 15, you know, if we do, great, if we don't, we gotta have a plan for it, and I just don't know. I think we play a lot of variables, and so. And now they're going to, you know, I just got an email this morning, they're gonna go to one lane for the Tossin Bridge from 6:30 in the morning to 6:30 at night. I call that road rage. You know, that's what I see happening out of that. Some of it's outside of our control, but, I think people getting jammed up in that traffic for a period of time is gonna be, I think it's gonna be ugly all day, so. And that's just from past experiences with those kind of road construction events, so, it's, yeah. Yeah, anything else you wanna chime in on there? No? Big man? Governor?
I do have a few questions if I can ask those.
Yeah.
So Debbie, looking at the revenue, I know you've been working a lot with Brandon, so again, thanks both of you. The interfund transfer on the first page of the revenue, and I may have an old revenue report, I got your updated expenditures. I didn't run a revenue this morning, we just ran out of time with Board of Health this morning. I show an $80,000 for the interfund transfer, is that still accurate?
Well, yeah, so what's happened in that account is the carryover from the memorial account has always carried, I understand that that's cash, that's our cash carrying over, but that's an estimated what's gonna carry over. In talking with Debbie this morning, that's outside of your guys' commitment from PILT while that's there, the 50,000 for that account. Roughly 30 of it would be that carryover. Cause I purposely didn't budget for 10,000 of it last year, and I didn't do that this year again in the memorial account itself. And then the money that hasn't been spent in those accounts in the previous years would be roughly that 80,000, and that's, it might go down to 75 or something. We can make small adjustments for that, but talking with Debbie, it is our cash, and we understand that, but it's the cash that was brought in for PILT for that purpose, and I think that we're okay with that carrying over each year, using that to, you know, add to it, kind of build, I guess, and not get lost in the rest of the cash for the public safety, so, if that makes sense.
It does, so it's correct to be 80,000 in that one?
Yeah,
Okay, so if we instructed
that's right.
departments to plan on a 3% increase, if we did that, you know, you guys have the same amount as last year, or at least that was the plan, did that change? It's $599, $515?
It's just because there's no change on the back.
Yeah,
Okay.
There's actually like some cents on the back that would make up that $6, I think is what it was.
It is rounding, Brandon rounded down and I rounded up, so,
Oh, I don't care about the pennies or the dollars,
Yeah.
but if we take that number, realizing that you guys did not add that 3%, if you did add the 3%, which if it is 15, even minus a chunk, 3% is extremely conservative. But if we just took the 3%, you're looking at an increase of $18,045. So that's almost your $21,000 deficit. If we then looked at concealed weapons permit, you have 3,000 budgeted, but actual this year so far, you've brought in 3,350, and last year it was 4,875. If you were to add another 1,000 to that, you'd be closer to actual, and now you're $19,000, 2,000 from balance. And then for miscellaneous revenue, that's at 2,500. Last year you realized 7,183, and the year before 18,002.
Those are
If you raise that by 3, you're way over and you're budgeted, you're balanced. I know that there are no guarantees, and the budget is a fluid document, it is not a solid document. But what I'm saying is, instead of low gauging your revenue, if it were more of an average based on past years, then you would, totally lost my train of thought. If you are more on your actuals with your revenue to balance your budget, in my opinion, your mindset is more in the area of, okay, how can we reach these numbers? And I'm not talking big jumps. how can we reach the averages of the last years, rather than, yep, we only need to make 1,000. So, those would be my suggestions for bringing in a balance. We have a record of always helping your department. So, the instructions were to balance, and we can't rely on PIL to balance budgets. I think this gives us an avenue not to. So those are my suggestions. If you wanted to add 3.5% or come up with a, revenue somewhere else, looking at revenue versus cutting expenditures, I think it's fair. So that's my suggestion.
And I don't think, I would have to, obviously defer to sheriff on the concealed weapons permits. He deals with those a lot more than what I do. I look at numbers on a paper. The only thing I don't like about the miscellaneous is those are insurance checks coming in, one for a total police car, one for a deer crash. So that's what you're seeing is those big numbers there. That's just a check coming in for the insurance to pay for damage. So I don't really like that so much that to rely on that, because there have been years that we haven't hit a deer and then we'd be 7,000 less. So I don't like sticking numbers in that too much, because that's all we really see in that miscellaneous is the insurance, outside of a couple little things like small grants, equipment grants, things like that we've received that would go into that miscellaneous account. So that's kind of my thought on the miscellaneous revenue and why you see that 18,000 and then the 7,000, and that's the insurance portion of patrol vehicles. So.
And that's fine, if you wanna pick a different line item, that's fine. It's your budget. That was just a shot in the dark, but yeah, I know there's a number of grants out there, or other options. All I'm saying is, there's room in your revenue to realize that 21,000 without putting any stress on your budget. Debbie, could you talk a little bit about what you and Michelle were saying the other day about the philosophy of budgeting? Basically, just, should you be lowballing revenue and highballing expenditures, and what happens if you do that? And that's not directed at you guys, that is actually another department head who had made a practice of budgeting that way, and it's not accurate, and we're trying to deal with that now.
We had stuff all ready to pass out for our little whatever. But essentially, if you lowball your revenues and highball your expenses, what people tend to do then is, oh, I budgeted $20 to spend on this, so I better spend it or I'll lose it. Well, what that does is it cuts into your cash reserves. And if you lowball your revenue and you get more, then they tend to think, oh, I got more revenue so I can spend more. And it skews the concept of your reserves and your cash balances. A lot of the trainings and educational things we've been to in the last couple of years emphasize not to do that, because it can get you in trouble. And I think we've seen some of that over the last few years where some departments have done that. And then they're finding themselves in the hole because they're spending thinking they'll lose it, but then they don't get their revenues, even if they bowl them low, and it has a domino effect. It's just not sound money management.
So, and I think understanding, it's obviously a possibility. What we do at the sheriff's office, we've came into office with a negative cash reserves. So we've worked really hard on being conservative to build those up. So when we do our budgeting and throughout the whole year, it's not, I don't just look at this expenditure over here, I also watch revenues. And if my revenue isn't within plus or minus a certain percentage all the way through the year, that's how we gauge our expenditures. So we absolutely pay attention to that. My part on coming in just a little bit low on some of these revenues is that and I get those revenues, expenditures to match up, is anything excess continues to help build these cash reserves, which is the goal of the entire county for the 33%. So, we are very aware of keeping those matched up all the way throughout the year, which I think they have been for the most part. Every time I go look, it's just plus or minus within 2-3%. And it goes like this, which is expected. And if it started getting way out of whack is when, if our revenues weren't coming in, that's when we say, okay, yeah, we did say that we're gonna expend this much, but we're gonna drop it down now because we need to get it to match back up with our revenue. And I think doing that, we're coming in under budget 2 years now, and at the same time, you know, trying to provide that service to Broadwater County.
Well, I don't know what this year's looking like, where we're at right now.
I haven't ran it in a couple weeks, but I mean, it's
Last time
been good.
Last time Brad ran it, we were at 89% or something like that.
I think that was maybe June.
Yeah, beginning of June or something like that. So we're trying to maintain that and trying to stay within that confines. You know, and I did have a conversation with Sergeant Rouser last night, because, you know, one of his concerns was this, you know, continue to get busier and busier and busier and busier, and this migration, I call it, to everything around us. It's at some point we have to do something that's different, and I don't know. Obviously, you know, working with Bill, trying to do the posting, you know, I was very honest with you guys, I had not received any good conversation points with that from the people I talked to. So I don't know, something's gotta give. I mean, that's just all there is to it. I mean, we're getting people, and I think Mike, you and I talked about it, everybody's came here from somewhere else because they didn't want to pay the high property tax, they didn't want this, they didn't want that, but they want all the same services, and love to help. I would, I just don't, I have to operate within the means that's provided, and so, it's just getting to a stretching point where there's a lot of tension on it, it's gonna break, and that's part of the problem. So, you know, like Brandon said, we do spend a lot of time looking at what's coming in and what's going out, and you know, now unfortunately, people have been stopped on some things that, because the money's not there, so, I mean, we can look at some things, and the only thing I would say about the CWPs is, most of my CWPs a lot of them are elderly folks, and they have started to pass away, and so I just got like 3 or 4 weeks worth, and there was only like 10 CWPs in there, and most of them are renewals. But a lot of our folks that retain CWPs for a long, long time they're starting to pass away, and so getting a few. But the only thing I'm seeing an increase in, I'm not seeing the young generation getting concealed weapon permits, but I do see a lot of females. Probably out of the 10 I had, probably 5 or 6 were females, and that's good to see. You know that they're taking those steps to do that. So, but it's a guessing game. Let's throw a dart at the board and hope the hell it works. So, you know, we can look at some things, and like I said, I think the part of it is if we had a little. I understand where Bill's information is, and it's good information, and I appreciate that. But what we visualize and when that comes is going to be a different thing. So even if we were 10%, we're still. If there was a 10% instead of 15, that's still we're still hitting the mark as well. So what do you think?
So, I mean, Debbie was gracious enough to bring down our budget. So for revenue, we're at 95% right now today, this morning, and expenditures 92%. So, you know, that goes with what we've been watching all year and keeping those right at matching and mirroring each other. So,
And we're 2 payments behind on
yeah, I think we're 2 payments out on
jail revenue.
jail revenue. They usually run about 1 or 2 behind, months behind. So.
There's no question, you've done a great job. my idea. I just wanna see it balanced, that's our job. If you guys wanna ask us to do 4%, put it out there. We suggested 3 to be very conservative. With Bill's email today, give that to us, counter
I
my
think that-
proposal to you.
I think it's workable. I mean, it's,
And I can give you the math if you want that, for a counter. 4%, it's 23,980. So you're balanced.
Yeah, no, I mean, whatever you guys want, I mean, that you tell us what you want us to go do, so that's,
So what's the difference if we're 3 and 4, what's the difference between those two numbers?
If we
About
assume a 3%
$1,600.
increase, it's $18,045 more, just shy of being balanced by about $3,000. If we assume a 4% increase, then it's $23,981. So we are now balanced to the good by about $2,000.
I think we just adjust it to the 4. I think that that's as close as we're gonna get, I think. I think it's probably closer than the 3.
I do too, I wouldn't have a single problem with that. Would like that to come from you guys as a request, so that, you know, it is more of a give and take, it is your budget.
yeah, and so what's happened is I'm going back to the drawing board, and then of course Debbie and I get together and we find little things here and there that need to be fixed, and I think we've actually probably got all the kinks worked out of this document, but instead of me going back and either, you know, cutting or whatever, I give me direction, I'll go put it on paper, and then we'll submit it to Debbie and you guys, and then we can be done. So,
Can we just take this and submit it today with the 4%?
yeah, that one's not quite right, unless you emailed it out. I have the,
well, that's got that might have the error in it.
right after I
Yeah.
sent you guys the final one, then
Okay.
we got together, we found the error, so there's still a
Okay.
little.
I gotta send you a new one
Okay.
Yeah.
with the little
Yeah,
thing
if
fixed.
the 21,000 is accurate with all the kinks worked out,
Mhm.
if that's what you wanna do is the 4%, I could agree to that. And then we could get that submitted so that we can get the preliminary budget out, so that we have that to review, and the tax levy requirements report that goes with that. Kind of the things we're waiting on.
And I'll look at, I mean, I have a problem with that.
Okay.
3-year average on CWPs and making a more solidified number. That's not good, we're just gonna have the data on that, so. Like I said, that's the only thing that, there's months, January is a huge month, because that was, you gotta go back to the election cycles, and when people thought their guns were getting taken away, and so everybody got CWP, so. But it's kind of funny how that kind of goes, so we'll just have to kind of look at that, because I know when we had the big ammo crunch and the big gun, everybody's gonna take your guns away. I know there was a skyrocket there, so, but I can go back and look at that. So.
And if we do the 4%, then it's a moot
Yeah,
point
that's
anyway,
what
you're
you-
balanced now. So, and then we do bottom line budgeting, so that each line item isn't a standalone.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
I'll just
thank you.
I'll run upstairs and get that to you in 5-10 minutes, so you're done.
Okay.
And I can move on from this.
Now you can think about something else for a
Yeah.
I know, I'm ready to,
couple months.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for
That's
sharing.
on our
yeah,
LAPC
we'll
about
get it worked out.
wildfires.
I'll
Like,
make some changes.
don't even have the sun out.
Okay.
It comes out, it goes away, and then it rains, so.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Lynn.
Thank you, Lynn.
Enjoy the rest of the day.
Debbie, both you and Brandon did a lot of work. Thank you.
Yep, thank
Well,
you.
Bill's worksheet. I didn't have the formulas and stuff, but I tried to take what Black Mountain and match it to their bills worksheet, so I could get them to jive. So we know we were balanced and close. And there was just a couple of little things that they had in the wrong places and different things, and so we got close. I actually, because the worksheet with the mistake had a 4,000 surplus. He's like, what? So I gave him false hope. I gave him false hope.
$40,000 surplus, I thought that was pretty nice.
So,
Darn
but then he
it.
goes, oh no, there's problems with the worksheet. Oh, man. So, they still have some revenues yet to get in, like the fourth quarter entitlement. Melissa just had the notice today that'll add to those that get it, entitlement. And that's one of the things they're short. And if they're short on 2 months of revenue from the BOR charges, there's another, I think it's been about 40,000 a month. So there's another 80,000, so they're gonna be really good with their revenues. And their cash, I was gonna bring a cash report and I forgot. When we looked at it this morning, they had like 220,000-ish in their cash moving forward. And really outside of a few claims and this payroll, there's not much I see hitting their cash. So they're going into it with a pretty strong reserve compared to
267.
years in the past, yeah.
I ran a report this morning.
Yeah, I was gonna run one and, try and get payroll done. I wasn't prepared. So, as prepared as I should have been. So they've done good, and we've been watching it, Fran and I, we've been watching it, and they've done good at staying under what they budgeted. So if they stay there and don't go over, yeah, I think they're going into the new year stronger than they have in the past.
I agree, yeah,
So that's good.
yeah. So I guess, can I ask you a couple questions? The cash report, so a couple of my questions going through the budget yesterday. The taxes, have they been reconciled, do you know?
I don't know.
Okay, did you see my email this morning? Answering Val,
Yes.
you were CC'd. So, and you just told us that the fourth quarter entitlement shares coming.
Yeah, because
come
Melissa
in.
come over and she thought there was another worksheet supposed to go with it. She had herself confused. So she come to ask me, so, yeah,
Okay.
so, and it was the fourth quarter entitlement, that she just has to do the journals and distribute to all the funds that get it.
Okay, and yeah, the budget, the cash report for today looks vastly better than it did just a couple weeks ago. My guess is that it does include,
I
The
think
taxes?
it does the majority of the portion for those that paid by the deadline.
yeah,
But anything in June, I don't think Doug has interfaced any of that. I think he was trying to
Okay.
get May balanced so he could work on June, and June's gonna be open now for a while because we have all the end of the year claims, stragglers with the tax payments, people that are paying late and things, and he probably won't interface some of that till towards the end of June. Once,
okay,
especially once I got payroll done with all the end of the year quarterly reports to hit the right fiscal year. And that's why I was sidetracked, because I was trying to open a new fiscal year, because we can't get new time cards cycle, because it's a new fiscal year. Open, and people are, I need time card, well, so I have to open the new fiscal year, and there's a process, and then, so, I was distracted.
no, I'm not, all I'm trying to understand is where we're at numbers wise. And that was the reason for the list of questions. And maybe what I sent out didn't have the questions, but basically the questions were the reconciliations and the entitlement.
I'd have to ask Doug to make sure.
Okay, but what you said makes sense. So, there was a email exchange between you and Val to perhaps work at moving district court to the general fund. Right now, district court is funded with entitlement share almost, well, vastly mostly. And that is allowed by law to grow by 3% a year. So it's kind of a 3% guaranteed growth every year. And the one year it was short, we borrowed from rural fire to make sure that district court stayed whole and then paid them back from PILT the next year. So if we were to move district court to the general fund, granted, that entitlement share would be also, but it would be part of this big marriage of the general fund. How would that put more money in district court? I don't understand.
I don't know as it necessarily would, other than it would put her in the general fund where county attorney, justice court are already. We're looking at the bars. And Harold had mentioned in some point in time, typically it's, when he came to a presentation, they're part of the general fund. So it was just an idea I threw out at Val after she come down and talked to me. It was just something, an idea, is really where it was headed. I think she's, by being in her own, she's targeted. Or was
Targeted.
targeted.
By the nasty comments that
Yeah,
were made to her yesterday.
Yeah. And so if she was with the rest of us all marriage together, we're sharing more of our resources on paper.
But there's still that individual department. I
Right,
mean,
right.
you take,
In
Health.
honesty, everybody in the general fund could be in their own special revenue fund.
which is what we tried to do a couple of years ago. So I was surprised
Yeah.
to see the email
Yeah.
where there was a move to go the opposite direction.
It was an idea she brought up, and I looked at the bars to see if it was doable. The bar's pretty open to that. So that's where that whole conversation arose.
Would
She
we
was
have
an idea.
time this budget season, if that is what makes the most sense to do it this year? Or is it like we tried a couple of years ago that it should be done in the fall and the winter, when things are slower?
When things are slower.
Okay.
To try to get it all done, there's a lot of budget amendments, journal entries, to make it happen before the end of the fiscal year, so that it's clean in the new fiscal year. But there's a lot of work, and if we do, COLAs, and there's gonna be a lot of extra journals.
So to bring you guys up to speed, I think this was right before you came on board or right after. We met with Bob, the auditor, and he said, you know what I'd like to see all counties do is get rid of the general fund. Essentially what he said is your general fund will just have those departments whose sole job is servicing the rest of the county. So payroll, obviously. Collection of taxes. Those would be some of your only things in the general fund, and everything else is a separate fund. So district court, county attorney, justice court, public health, sanitation. And then when Debbie got into it and called Bob, it was more complicated than he had alluded and you understood. And correct me if I'm wrong. So when you look at the fair, extension, ambulance, all those senior meals, all those standalone departments that are not in the general fund have been the ones who've had excess money at the end of the year to put into CIPs. Road, weed, mosquito. And so the thinking was, if each department could be its own department, we might actually have kind of a different mindset on the spending and the bringing in revenue. Set the mills, again, the idea of not use it or lose it, but at the end of the year, if you have a surplus of 33% or more, goes into your own departmental CIP, not a general fund CIP. I liked it, I thought it made a lot of sense, and look at the success of extension and fair and all those. So, I think, especially looking at this updated, cash report, I think district court is going in the right direction. It's not gonna be corrected overnight, just like solid waste.
Yeah.
It takes time, but as long as you're on the right road, you know where you're leading up to.
'Cause
If
I think
there
she
is a-
actually had like 19,000 cash, I think. When we
Not
looked
prior
at it
to
last
this
night?
report, but according to this report, it's 24,908 for ending cash balance, 19,919 for beginning cash balance. So that's really good, especially if this doesn't include entitlement share.
Yeah, she doesn't have all her revenue yet, because Melissa was working on getting those distributed today.
So if there is a plan that putting it into general fund finds more money, let's talk about that. And that's the reason for my question. If there isn't, I would be reluctant to just shoving another department into a general fund, because I think any department that stands alone is stronger. And that is just by seeing so many.
And that's kind of part of our
Budgets.
conversation, is what I told her I need to look into a little more, because I'm just not certain. Depending on what report you look at, and like in my budget prep module, everything is just in flux right now. And there is a report in there that takes and throws in your unexpended accounts payable and receivables into the mix. And I don't know how Black Mountain figures that out, if it's looking at budget scenario and saying that's unexpended or unreceived revenues, and then factoring what I've put into the module already with submitted revenues and expenditures, and coming up with this, in theory, you could be shortfall to cover your expenditures type of thing. I just don't know how that's working, and that would be something I need to call Black Mountain on. So that's why that report probably, I don't like it, so I try not to look at it too much. It's just one of those reports they've created for somebody. So I don't know if that's a report she looked at, or, you know, I send a lot of reports out, different things. I mean, we get a big picture of things. And so I'm just not certain how she was told she's 70,000 in the hole.
I think she was told she was 100,000 in the hole, according to her email.
See, and
But this was sent to you both in February and in April, which is the tax levy requirements report. You can see where it was 30,000 positive, and then it went down to 1, and then it went to 0, and then it went to 70 in the negative. Again, didn't get there overnight, it's not gonna be fixed overnight. Finding the $500,000 last year
helped her.
is gonna help, and that's probably one of the reasons we're seeing more positive numbers in the cash report. But I don't think that that's something that should be used as a weapon against her, by, someone
Or any
who's-
fund for that matter.
Or any fund.
Um,
Yeah, we're just in
because-
the middle of the budget season, we don't even have the preliminary done yet, so that was incredibly irresponsible.
And I
of
know,
someone.
looking at reports, there's a lot of the funds where basically I just plugged in last year's revenues, but there's a lot of other little funds they get that they haven't heard on yet, like the trees at the health clinic they're waiting on. Little things like that before they can really finalize. So preliminary is just that, it's just a rough guess of where we are right now and where do we need to focus to get our final budget. And it's.
That being said though, when we do have a cash levy requirements report with a negative, we've gotta pay attention to it.
Mhm.
We can't pile on more spending without addressing the fact that we're dealing with a negative. And that's our jobs as commissioners. But to take a sentence made in a preliminary budget discussion and go to district court and say, nanny, you've got $100,000 deficit is irresponsible, unthoughtful, and absolutely beyond the pale, Tim. That was not well done, nor was it honest. So,
Excuse me.
if you could.
Point of order, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
If I'm gonna continue getting attacked for trying to get clarification on something, I think that's really out of line, Mr. Chairman and members of this commission. I think it's more than fair to hear part of the puzzle that you guys just talked about this morning, and then go to the people that are actually at the table, that may be not in the meeting, to ask a question and then have that thrown back in an attack on me. I think that's very unethical and it's unprofessional, and if you don't like being asked questions, maybe then that's where we are gonna continue partying. But Mr. Chairman, that's just, I cannot apologize for asking questions on trying to get the truth. Thank you.
I'm not gonna read the email that was sent out last night, but that person was clearly hurt by getting fractional information that was inaccurate. One of the things we talked about yesterday was if we get more mills, and with Bill's email, I'm not sure where we'll be on that, but shifting another $0.5 to district court to help with this. So we didn't vote on it, but if you guys are in agreement, I would like to add that to your list. Are you guys good with that?
What would, how many more mills would we get if we did get any?
See, that's the thing, is on the first Monday after the first Tuesday in
Yeah, but I
August.
want the answer now.
I know, and that's, I love that Bill sent that email, but it does have me wondering, uh-oh, I
Yeah.
think we're gonna lose mills
We're gonna lose
versus
mills because
bigger.
our value went up too far.
Exactly, which is a good thing. And if that happens, that we do have, even if we lose mills, but we get an increase in valuation, then what I would think we'd talk about is, okay, so general fund is going to increase 9%, say. We have 12,000 extra from entitlement share. Let's shift a bigger chunk of that to district court instead of keeping it in the general fund or public safety, or is that right now?
That will be another one of those things, as we work on budget, we can, or have, and probably still will, adjust those percentages to those funds that get it. And it might go to some of the other little funds that over the years have received it over time. It just depends on our valuations for the general fund versus who isn't getting any of that could use it.
So planning is the other department that gets entitlement share, rural fire. Anyone else?
District court, road, general fund. There's about 6 or 7 departments that get it. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think it's planning, district court, road, general, fire, rural fire. There's another one in your senior meals or transport, maybe one of those. I just can't remember
Okay.
off the top of my head.
So any departments that get mills, if we get a nice increase, maybe we just freeze the entitlement share and shift to planning district court. All the others, I think. are
Sheriff,
mills.
public safety, that was the other one.
Right. So it's an idea, but for us to ignore this, -70, is
Well,
just
she
as
got lucky
irresponsible.
not having a lot of trials and stuff this year.
Right, so
Or there would've
maybe
been
that
extra
will help
jury.
solidify it. And that's probably where that cash report's looking really good.
Mhm.
Does she still have reimbursements coming, or has she got all the reimbursements she's supposed to get? 'Cause didn't we set up a fund 2 years ago?
Oh, well, we
for-
do for like the involuntary commitments and stuff, we separated that out of her budget. But some of the regular jury and witness fees, how much of those the state reimburses and don't, I'm just not sure how much they do or don't anymore. I don't
So,
know if she's got any outstanding trials or anything this year, I don't think she does she?
so I ran the revenue report for district court yesterday. Local vehicle option tax, that's missing about $25,738. My guess is it's like entitlement share and it's coming any day now. Right, it's a quarterly report. Local vehicle option tax is one of the things that I had a meeting with one of the chief legal, I forget her title, with the Attorney General's office. So they're the ones who do local vehicle option tax. Our tax is vastly lower than any other state around us. So the Attorney General's office was planning, I don't know what the bill was, to go to the legislature to increase that to 12%, which would still be less than any of our neighboring states, but a huge increase for Montana. I don't think that went through. But that's about $99,000, $99,990 for district court. So that's a chunk, and we're still missing 25,000. In the future, maybe they'll address that again. Reimbursement, that's a small fund, but we've only gotten 34% because we haven't had any trials. So we haven't had the expense to get the reimbursement, but it still averages out.
Yeah.
So, state entitlement share, that's showing, that it hasn't come in. District court clerk fees. Actually, we budgeted for 12, she brought in 16. So, and then everything else is just little. 0.5 mils. This year, well, it's not a great deal, but it will add up over time, especially if this continues. So, and then another mill, it just helps that. But I do think district court is more solid being funded with entitlement share than mills. Even though there was a hit on entitlement share this year, we won. But they didn't allow us to increase 15, 10, 420 either. So, you know, whatever the legislature chooses to do to hit local governments, it's what they choose to do.
So do we need to, in the future, if there's another run on entitlement share like was in the past, we probably have to keep that in mind, because that is gonna impact her.
Yeah, and conversely, in the future, say they make a run on property taxes.
Right.
We don't know what they're gonna make a run on. Justice reform, what did that cost us? A bucket load. The tax appeal boards, what did that cost us? A bucket load. Mental health, you know, so we don't know what they're gonna target next time. But, yeah, we've gotta keep an eye on all of this. And that's one of the reasons that I really like what our previous commissions set up is PILT is not spent at the beginning of the year to balance budgets. If we had an issue where the legislature said we're gonna cut 50% of entitlement share for at least the first year, I'd expect that'd be PILT that would make up that difference while we tried to figure out what to do. Because when is the legislature done? April. When do we start budgets? March. So if that happens, that PILT becomes huge.
I guess probably the important thing to know is that, you know, the reason they had this deficit, that practice has stopped. Right? It's been corrected?
No,
No?
and this is where I'm not sure we have the money for, more than 16 hours a week. And even the 16 hours a week is one of the reasons that went down. Yeah, we did kind of correct it with the 0.5 mil, perhaps another 0.5 mil, and, this budget, as it's coming in this year, I think does go a long ways to take us in the right direction. Do we have the money for more than 16 hours? I don't know. And it's not just 1 year, it compounds annually. So we had a couple of years where there were a lot of expenses for district court in fiscal, 2015, 16, 17, and 18. The cost for district court climbed a lot. Number of trials, other expenses. This year went way down, which is good, and will help us to balance that out. But yeah, I think the 16 hours per week, Janine, I think that's something we can keep. We're gonna have to really crunch the numbers to see if we can go to 20 or 24, and the 6 weeks full-time. If everything is balanced, then when we look at it that way, if the 17,000 is just reduced, we gotta look at that.
So what would happen if we took the don't increase the hours, but we do the increased training. What I'm thinking is Janae went in there for a year or whatever, and you don't know what you're doing, and you're constantly going back and forth. But if you would've had those 4 to 6 weeks of training, then you'd be that much more efficient, and that efficiency would cover up that 4-hour excess that we were gonna give. So we take that person and give them that 4 to 6 weeks of training, and then now they're more efficient, so we don't need that other 4 hours.
Yeah, you think about it, it's just a month of pay, so, looking at about $30,000, somewhere in there?
Come up with something close to that.
Yeah, so that would be affordable. I think,
And then the other thing
very
is,
strongly, I think so.
if our evaluations come back a lot higher than we think, and they don't take mills away, then maybe we can allocate those other 4 hours.
Right,
If
Right.
that comes to the point. And the thing that I don't wanna do is I think that we need to get Debbie and Michelle help more than we need to do district court. If we can do this training and take care of the 4 hours, and the help to Debbie and Michelle is gonna be more valuable than the help to, overall, than the help the district court's gonna be. Because the district court's in a hole, and we need to get them out of that, and if we give them more hours, it's just gonna add more, they have to come in with more. So what were we looking at were we looking at 20 and 20 for each of those?
yeah, that's what we kind of come down to an agreement on. And what that meant is there was, no help for the commission filing. That was one of the things that we gave up in that discussion.
But weren't we gonna pull that help for the commissioners out of planning and
Right.
sanitation?
Right, that's what
Okay.
I remember.
All right, yeah, you're right,
Yep,
good.
we were picking that extra 4 hours there.
But I think 16 hours between Michelle and I, once we get caught up, will be plenty.
Once
So-
you get caught up though, you guys have a boatload to get caught up. You do,
I know.
looking on the top of Michelle's file
I
cabinets.
know.
I,
And just like yesterday, plowing through my desk and stuff, the piles just kept getting bigger and I can't. Because it comes in faster than it goes out.
well, that's just it. So I think if we undercut your department, I don't think we're solving the problem we need to solve. So I appreciate that. But I'm not sure it's been properly evaluated.
No.
And the other part of that is if we have those hours and they do get caught up to that point, then we could have those hours to go to other places.
We could shift
Right.
it, we could shift if we need to.
And in 6 months, you know, that could be something that we look at, or next year, we look at shifting those hours. So I feel better about that budget, having talked about that with, I think, more facts in front of us. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think so.
So another one, in going through our paperwork for the budget yesterday, the juvenile transport, juvenile detention, we have a bill of $19,000. But there is a note from Brooke upstairs that says that should all be reimbursed.
That's what I thought that was supposed to all do. Who's supposed to reimburse it?
I think the state is. I totally forgot about that, but that definitely takes some pressure off of the general fund, but still. Do you know anything about that, Debbie?
Haven't heard anything.
Okay.
Mm.
Oh, no, it was Wynn that said that in a meeting. The state has said they will pay that.
Ooh.
So,
Boy, that echoed.
What's that, the nuclear war coming? The Iranians have bombed us. Budget's over.
Have to worry about it.
Put your spurs on.
Head to your bunker.
Did he have any
We're in
idea
the boat.
when it was gonna be reimbursed? I know, oh, yeah, I think I remember him saying something about that here, I mean, a couple weeks ago or so.
my notes have it in April, but I think it was repeated, yeah. So,
I'll have to look and see, because I thought it was still showing a negative cash
we may have to infill it and then,
until we get it and then put
Right.
it back, yeah.
yeah, the state doesn't work real fast and
Mhm.
it could be waiting for the trial process or whatever they're doing. So, yeah,
Short-term loans aren't hard to do.
yeah.
They can be reversed in the new fiscal year when it comes in.
So, the planning, looking at the cash report, the budget looks strong, but they're sitting in a negative cash balance as of today. Any thoughts, Debbie?
You know, I talked to Nicole at one point, and I know some of this all depends on when the plats and all the surveys and stuff are finalized, when they get her fees. 'Cause I was looking at her budget, she hasn't overspent on anything per se.
We did not transfer the money that we had planned to from the turn lanes last year. It looks like we did a small
We did
amount.
up to the actuals at the end of the year, so it basically zeroed her out.
Okay,
We didn't do any more than that,
so we may have to use that turn lane for that as well,
which is part of what's sitting in the PILT balance, cash balance.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, 'cause she's only received 35% of some of her revenues. But she got more in the planning fees than she budgeted for.
And we're gonna move the revenue that's going into the general fund to planning, right?
Yeah, it was that,
It's 1,500-ish?
oh, it was 3, 4. It was the same as the planning fees that she's got, only it's in the general fund. The 341,070. I don't remember whatever's sitting in that, without looking at a cash report. So that'll, and I need to talk with Doug on that too, because I don't know when he receipts it in, if it's coded to automatically split a percent.
Okay,
He'll have to change that table in the receiving side of things,
okay,
so in the future it doesn't do that. But I mean, I can do the journal for this fiscal year, but I need to make that change somehow.
okay.
I don't have access to that, so I don't know. See, I think it was the planning fees. Yeah. But so far, she's, well, the interfund operation transfers, yeah, we only did up to actuals, which was less than what we budgeted.
Okay.
I found notes somewhere with that one. I think it was in my budget prep module for last year.
I know we can't take the turn lane out of PILT. Can we do some kind of like brackets that says Woodland Turn Lanes has such and such?
I can make a sub on my worksheet,
Okay,
like, show the balance and dumbing down everything. I could add a separate section to that. To
That
show
would
what our
help
beginning balance
us.
was, what we've spent, where, to show what is left of that, sitting in the
Okay.
cash, PILT's cash, that's, so you don't spend it all. I could do a
Right.
sub thingy in the worksheet,
okay, thank you.
so there's just information.
Yeah. Okay,
I've been trying to figure out how to do that one.
so, the solid waste plan, Did you look into that at all, the corrective action plan?
Yeah, and tracing everything from getting around a report and then the state saying no. We did include in our response when they didn't accept our response and they want more detail, we did put in our letter to them that we would use PILT as a loan for this year, coming year,
Coming year.
this new year. Because we're done with this year, because we did that short term to zero it out and then reversed it going into the new year. Well, now we need to do that as a long-term loan. So this year it zeroes out, so we're starting in the new year and then they have to work on repaying that in our new fiscal year. That was part of our response in our letter. I didn't remember that, but that was in our response letter.
Michelle was pretty adamant about that, so I
Yeah,
figured there
and
was
so
something
that's,
to it.
it was in our actual response. So they accepted that, but now for this year, and moving forward, they're wanting more documentation at some of those things we were gonna do to increase fees and things to generate more revenue. So, and I have to have some of that, an updated cash balance by June of 2019 for them. So we don't have repeat finding.
Do we need to, when we do the final cash report for the last day of the year, do we need to do that full amount from PILT at this point? Or can we put that into the new budget with the increased fees and the decreased trips to the transfer station? And any leftover, do the loan to balance?
Well, it takes us a couple months to actually get the year closed. Because it takes, the auditors help me with, and Doug, with making the last little bit of closing entries. There's a lag with final claims being paid out of this fiscal year that affects the balances. So until we're to the point where it's officially closed, that's gonna change. So yes, until we're ready to adopt and finalize our budget, that cash balance could change until our year is closed. So we should know our increased fees, have a projected revenue, and I don't have that from Mary yet. I know she's still trying to get some of that, because I don't have her revenues yet, so, that's where in some of that projecting, those fees, what it will do to the revenues, I don't have that yet. So once we have that, I can then move forward with coming up with a better idea of what the cash balance would be to answer that question.
So we don't have to take the cash balance number,
Not yet,
okay, all right,
because until the end of June and all the end of the year, things have finalized and hit cash, we're in between two fiscal years to finalize a budget. That's why we don't do it till after we get valuations. We have time to close the year, get all our cash. Doug has time to balance and we can close. Because there
okay,
will be, I'm sure, some adjusting entries, there always are, little things that get missed that we'll have to fix to get a true end of the year cash balance.
okay. So even though we told Department of Admin we would use PILT, that does not mean we cannot still go out for BOI. It just means that that is a second step rather than a first step, right?
That's part of all of our corrective action plan. What are we doing to help, or strategy,
Yeah,
as Bill would say, moving forward to eliminate that and not keep having the negative cash balance.
okay, all right.
So yeah, we got this BOI loan to help compensate that. Was it enough? Is it enough? You know, we're still waiting for that, still waiting for Doug to make sure we all just have our little pieces to make sure that number at the end of the year. And that's why when we were doing the closing entry last year, we had done that short-term loan for PILT, because that's when we were all done. And Danny said, that's the number you need to use moving forward, so you have a zero and you don't get a finding.
Okay,
And then they can repay it. Only this year it'll be a longer-term loan than a short-term loan,
okay,
for whatever that balance ends up being. Be nice if it wasn't any, but,
right. Okay,
so,
So if we get the Bureau of Investments loan, can we take that money and put it back into the PILT account?
I don't know what their terms are gonna be. I think it depends on what they say where it has to be spent.
But we
Or what
wouldn't
it's
have
for.
to be, we could remove pilt.
Right,
We could
From
remove
solid
pill
waste.
from solid waste and move it
Right.
back into
Move
the
it
pill,
back,
and the
yeah.
DOI goes into the solid
Yeah.
waste.
right,
Yeah.
And then we have that pill option still available for
Mhm.
whatever else we need.
exactly.
I see the pilt as temporary.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it's one of the few funds that has no restrictions on who gets it, in general fund. Otherwise, the others are more restrictive, so you try to reseed it in public safety and try to then give it to general fund, ain't gonna work. Because it was, public safety is restricted, more restrictive than the general funds. You can't take from a more restrictive to a lesser. And could general fund to the other way, so that's why general fund or pill are the one or two places most transfer monies can go. Or between interfunds, I think, and that was another question I've got on my list to ask Bob, between, say, like, the Barris and Road or something, because they're both special revenue funds, they're interfund, can they be done? That was a question, because I can't find anything anywhere that says no.
Which we wouldn't want to do, but.
No, but that's just an example, in the 2000, the special funds, anybody in there, can they, you know, or is there, how do you delineate that? Like we learned with the detention, the public safety. How does bars delineate that? I can't find anything anywhere.
But that defines why we last, what was it, Monday? Karen asked about what she had been told, I think erroneously, that money had been taken from the detention center and used for other departments. What you just described is
Mhm.
why that cannot and
Mhm.
has not happened,
Mhm.
correct?
It can't. I wouldn't allow it, knowingly allow it. And I know we can't because I've been told you can't. So it wouldn't be something I would encourage or endorse. So how and who and where she got that idea, I don't know. Now, yeah, general fund, but I can't take it from any of the special revenue funds unless they've agreed to it or it's okay under accounting principles.
Thank you. So you have a plan for all the negatives in the cash report, there's not that many.
There's not that many this year, and I do know, because I was working on this Friday, I found some more accounts that didn't have budget authority or revenue receiving authority that we'll need a budget amendment for.
Okay,
That I'll need to do as part of my end of the year adjustments. There's not too many of them, but there's a few.
okay.
One that I was reminded of today was for public safety, we had set up that separate fund, the high-risk transports a couple years ago, 2304 I believe it was, for
Oh, yeah.
when we had the horse rescue, we had this for high-risk transports and things of that nature. They've never used anything out of it. Well, then they bought something, industrial automation, something, well, it was charged out of their public safety fund. So we need to do a journal to take that cash, because they were using that cash to pay for that. So that's one of those examples, because there wasn't a line item for that.
Okay,
And it's a fixed asset too, so it's a double, gotta make sure we do that. So that'll be part of my budget amendment, which will help eliminate their line item expenditures.
so that's the other account, public safety other? And a
Mhm.
couple years ago, working with Wynn, and you and Seth, what we did is, there were a lot of complaints that the deputies were being sent out on pickup calls that were, orders hadn't been completed by the court, or hadn't been communication from, one entity to another. So we took 10,000 from district court, 10,000, I think, from the county attorney,
I don't remember now.
and we put it into that fund to pay for those, because the burden was falling on the sheriff's office. We haven't had that since, which was the purpose of creating that account, to kind of eliminate this problem. And so it's just kind of sat there, so that was one of the things this year with Brandon, trying to balance his budget, we talked about early on, is got $20,000 sitting here, so he used it,
Mhm.
yeah.
Right.
So, but yeah, we haven't had the problem since, so that was a success.
Just, yeah.
I think that's all of my questions. Do you have anything more to share with us? Anything we're missing? Anything we need to focus on?
Brandon did tell me that the refund from Bank of Texas for Zerker, that they had sent him an email that it's gotta be spent on another Zerker product. So that will probably go into the 911 fund, cause it's with all the dispatch types, equipment and things that they use there. So he did clarify that, cause I was putting it into their public safety budget. He says, no, there's restriction. I said, okay, well, wasn't sure, so we
Right.
hashed that out this morning.
Okay,
He said no, so. That's all right, if it's for equipment they need, that's where it needs to go.
absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah,
Especially if it keeps them modernized and able to handle things better,
yeah.
yeah. Just waiting to see when it's gonna come in, cause that statement was May to June. So now it's just a matter of watching to see, I haven't seen it come in yet, so I don't know. They'll send a check or what they'll do,
We shall see.
yeah. So that was part of our discussions this morning, before we came down here. Oh, I did have a question. You've got a line item, communications fund.
That is, and it's on the agenda for Monday, but that is the newsletter. Postcards coming up so that we have a ability to communicate with the public. Share with them
Okay.
some of the things that are going on in the county.
Okay, so I think when I got that, I did create a separate, it's a separate kind of account within the general fund all by itself. So it's not an account under commissioners or my account, it's kind of on its own. Because you had asked for that, so I didn't create a separate fund, but I did put in the general fund with its own account
That works.
as part of our budget. I wasn't sure what it was for.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that where legal went to? Legal defense?
I think there's a separate account for that one somewhere too.
Okay, separate account within the general?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm. I think I did, I have to go back and look, I remember seeing it. So I think it's in there, and it's a different number than what Corey's would be.
right.
So it's kind of in there, but not within your budget, so it's just kind of a standalone.
Okay.
Put it for attorneys and other legal, I don't know what I put in the notes.
Okay,
Hey Deb, when do you want to create, new line items and things like that for different accounts? And we talked about, where I'm going with this, talked about the airport, how they have trouble tracking their fuel. And we thought about creating a separate line item that shows where they're at with their fuel expenditures.
It is in one of their reports.
Yeah.
It's a specific object code within there.
But right now, it shows them paying for their fuel out of maintenance and repair, which it shouldn't be coming out of there.
Well, yeah, because it's oil and fuel and gas. Now, if they want to, I think there's a specific one.
But this is fuel that's bought at a pump, for,
Well, if it comes out of the pump, then it's going into revenue report. And Doug gets, they had to go all automatic out there, and everything is done ACH. So when somebody comes and buys fuel and fills their plane, it's charged to their card, and then the bank that sells them the fuel sends the money to Doug in his bank account.
right. And I went to Doug, and he had to dig pretty deep to find it. I mean,
Really?
It's not readily available. So what it does is it skews their maintenance and repair account. It
Now,
always
that's
shows
when
them-
they buy
Shows
fuel
them in a deficit,
to
yeah.
fill their tank to resell.
Right. So it shows them in a $70,000 deficit all the time in that line item, because that's where it's being where it's coming from.
I'll have to go look into that.
We'll look into that, and.
Because I know since Ernie left, the reporting side of things has been a little more,
Mhm.
Mike has relied on Michelle and I a lot. I'll
Right.
go look at that and see, because it might be something that they didn't budget enough, because like the price goes up for the gas they buy. It could have, that could be why it shows there to negative, because they bought more than they said they were, maybe?
Well, what's happening is, it shows that they purchased the fuel, but it never takes into account the money that comes back in.
Okay, that would be a separate report.
Mhm.
And I don't know if Mike is asking for the revenue report.
Well,
I'll look into
I
it.
just
We'll
know that
come
when
up
we
with
got
something.
our budget reports here a month or two ago, that was always the big question, is why repair and maintenance was showing such a big deficit.
Okay, I'll go look into the airport.
Yeah, look
But
at
I-
it, and
yeah.
I think you'll see what I'm talking about. I
Okay.
think there's just a better way of helping them track it.
Yeah. I know we've made a separate object code that's specifically gas, fuel, oil, diesel, that we could shift to that when they turn in claims versus the supply, but in the bars book, that object code covers all that. But we carried it one further, it still falls under 230, but like 231 for fuel, gas, diesel, because some people wanted to report it separate. That might be an option versus the repair and maintenance line item.
It'd just be easier going in and read that.
But I'll go look at that, and I'll go look at the
report.
revenue too,
Mhm.
and I'll go talk with Doug. I'm not sure why it should be that hard, you should be able to pull up their fund and
Yeah.
go right into their 2 or 3 revenue accounts where all that money comes in electronically. And I
Yeah.
think it identifies it like CTS Holdings or something for all those purchases. It really makes a lot of work on his side. Used to get a monthly report, but I haven't seen any of that since they switched companies, so
Okay.
but I'll look,
Let's see what we can do for you.
yeah.
Okay? Thank
Okay.
you.
Good to know.
So, to get the preliminary budget done, are you okay waiting on, after the 9th for, I think everything's done, because we're gonna get search and rescues corrected and public safety today, trust board. Are you okay
Well,
waiting?
see, I thought Debbie was gonna get me some different numbers and then they were just gonna vote on it. So I was okay to wait for them on the vote. So I'm not sure why now we're waiting till their vote for me to get those numbers. I'll just send her an email to clarify, because that's not what I remember us discussing.
Okay, okay, we're gonna be meeting with them on Monday. Perhaps if you let her know in the email, that we kinda told people 3% increase and see if she can turn in something in keeping with that. If you guys wanna wait till after Monday, that's fine. I'm starting to feel a little bit of crunch that we
Yeah.
don't have the preliminary budget.
Yeah.
That's
It's
plain and
close,
simple of it.
it's close.
And I won't, yeah,
Yeah. So it's just a couple stragglers like that, and Mary, I need to get with her, I gotta have her revenues, cause that is gonna change in her preliminary budget where the numbers are looking, it's gonna show her way,
I
In
think
the
we got
hole.
her revenues.
oh, did you?
Yeah,
Okay, 'cause
I'll get those to you.
cause I just have those first expenditures, and then she was gonna get the revenues, and she's being tugged in 20 different directions.
I know,
So-
yeah.
Trying to help her remember some of that stuff. It's kinda like me, walk out the door and it's gone.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll get you what we have, and then, maybe if you follow up with her,
Okay.
okay? Do we wanna also work on the computer plan next week, or do you guys wanna wait on that? Computer and printer
Yeah.
replacement plan?
Do we have enough information on that? Has everybody submitted what they need?
I think so,
Have they?
yeah, I think
Okay.
so, can you double check on that? If everyone submitted what do we have everything we need to have an in-depth conversation about the computers and the programs and the printers?
I will check with Doug, cause he kinda started all that.
Okay,
I somehow got caught in the middle with Black Mountain.
right. Oh, you know what, I'll check with Doug. Take that off
Because
your
I know he
plate.
was looking at ordering his computers from Dell, they were cheaper, and working with Josh. And I know Teresa already got hers through a grant, so there's a couple off the list, so it might just need an updated list from Josh. Who has and who don't have at this point, moving
Okay.
forward. And I think Doug could get that from Josh really easy,
And we may already have it.
and we might,
Yeah,
I just kinda hit and miss on that conversation.
okay.
And I know this, we're coming down to the end of the year, so I think our county attorney probably was going to work on his software, remember when he told us what the plan he had to purchase that, how do you
Yeah.
pay for it? I would assume that's gonna happen before the end of the year.
Do we wanna give some okays to some of our preliminary requests?
I think, well, yeah.
Okay, we wanna make that one the first one that we
Okay.
give the okay to for that plan?
Let's see, what's that?
Some of the requests are really easy.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, just real quick clarification, is this a request that you're going into for PILT?
No,
No.
These are just budget requests.
Okay.
So I can't remember what the name of the software program was, it was for, helping them to be more in line with this, what the state's going to, and help them streamline, be more efficient in their office as well,
yeah,
right? Is that how you guys know that?
That's, yeah.
Yeah,
yeah, I forget the name
and he had the
too.
money, in his budget and things to pay for it.
Yeah, the, money he was overpaid for,
So military,
For
Yeah.
military.
pay leave, and then
Yeah.
there was someplace else that he was getting it.
here it is.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Oh, and I'll give you an update too on the gift and witness. I don't know that we need the name of the software.
All right, I guess we can
We know it's
just move to allow the purchase of that.
case management software.
There you go.
Is what it is.
There you go.
Yeah. And it was, yeah, 2560 was what was left, and he has that in his budget.
Mhm.
Would you like me to move? that
I'll
we-
make the
Okay,
motion. I move that we allow our county attorney to purchase the case management software of his current year's budget.
and I'll second that motion and just add a friendly amendment with the details, and that is the grant is $7,360. Repayment of his overpaid salary of $9,630. And, from his budget, the balance of $2,560.
What's the software?
Case management software, yeah,
2,560,
yeah.
okay.
So the motion's been made and second to have the county attorney purchase the case management software system. Is there any other further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same, motion carries.
The other one that I think is pretty easy is the $500 to be added to professional services for justice court for paying the substitute judge as needed.
Sure.
And I will move to approve that.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Motion's been made and second to approve the $500 for substitute judge for justice court. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same, motion carries. We're gonna discuss the computers next week, right?
Yeah, add that to the agenda. Moving the assistant for maintenance to full-time. You guys ready to address that? That one, Mike has saved so much money by doing things in-house. That one's easy to consider, but we can hold off. What do you guys think?
I'm fine with approving
So I would move to approve the current staff and maintenance to move to 40 hours a week. Current full-time staff and maintenance to move to 40 hours per week.
It looks like that was what, a $9,000 increase, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. I'll second that.
it. Motion's been made and seconded to approve maintenance staff from 32 hours to 40 hours a week. Any further discussion? All in favor?
aye.
Opposed, same, motion carries.
Since we're on a roll, I'll move that with fiscal year 19 PILT, that we transfer $100,000 to the Barris litigation fund.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded to transfer $100,000 from PILT to the Bears legal fund. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same, motion carries.
And we have the $50,000 transfer from PILT to law enforcement budget for the Mason Memorial. Do you wanna make that one, Daryl, if you're good with that at this time?
Yeah. Okay. I'll move that we transfer the 50,000 from PIL to the Mason Moore Memorial Lookout.
I'll second that.
Motion been made and seconded to transfer 50,000 from PILT with the Mason Moore Material Fund. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same, motion carries.
And I'll move that we transfer from PILT $10,000 as an initial payment for the voting machines, as required by the Secretary of State's office, with full knowledge that that will be reimbursed.
Do we know that's gonna be reimbursed yet?
We don't have anything in writing, but, and, yeah, I guess, I should take that out of my motion. We have to have the machines that are required.
Mm-hmm.
Don't think it's an emergency to get it done now, so that we can table that if you want.
Yeah, let's go on that.
Okay, sounds good. We agreed on the staffing already for planning and sanitarian, right?
Yeah.
32 hours-ish. We should have a motion to switch the planning revenue object code from general fund to community development planning.
Which is the planning fund.
Yeah.
changing it to community development planning, then is that the fund that is that what we're gonna call that fund?
You know what, it's in here, it's still planning, but we did change the name of the office to community development a couple years ago, because they do so much more than just planning. I've been slow to adopt the change, because it's just less syllables. I'm trying.
The motion's been made to switch the planning fund from the general fund to the community development planning fund.
We'll second that motion.
Motion been made and seconded. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All the same, motion carries.
So one quick clarification, the staffing that is planning and sanitary into 32, is that for the clerk or a new hire? We're still gonna keep Sean as contracted service, or is this
That's for Janae.
what she's doing, and so it's gonna be between,
But
okay,
it's
so it's
a,
like the clerk, okay.
which one is, this is a new hire. Which one is the new hire?
Right, so we're
Because
hiring two
District court staff
to
and this is.
replace one. That's how valuable
Thanks
you
for
are.
that,
We just kind of split Janae's job into,
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Poor Janaea. Okay,
Hello? Hi? You can leave, okay?
so remind me on the sanitary and the planning, we're gonna kind of be working with that to figure out how many hours we need for the planner. So it's 32 hours with a couple hours a week on top for the commissioners, or shaved off?
No, it's 32 hours period.
Okay,
yeah.
all right. 32 hours total.
And then if Nicole was thinking that she was maybe gonna be able to cut her hours, and then that would, if we could give those hours to that person at a lower pay than what we're paying Nicole.
Right, and that's kind of a change in
If-
pains and,
If, you know, it depends on how busy planning gets, I don't see that happening, especially with the TED going on.
I agree with Ted. I think that's gonna be a lot more hours than she thinks.
And the other part of that too was if we, you know, that assistant would be able to do a lot more work and not require Sean to come down as
Yeah,
often and save some money there.
yeah, that was kind of the idea, was to get Sean down. Is Sean contracted monthly, or is he billing us hourly? Hourly.
Yeah. And if we advertise for somebody with some soils knowledge, they can actually pick up more that Sean is doing, because you don't need a registered sanitarian, as I
To do
understand it.
soil analysis.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, 'cause I think, yeah, Sean had some guidance for us on
Yeah, so if we could target,
that.
advertising towards some expertise,
Mhm.
might actually save us a lot of money.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And then, for finance and district court, maybe just hold off a couple days and,
Yeah, we'll
See
see
how
how
that-
that, see how that works out.
yeah, and frankly, Debbie's gonna be too busy to train somebody for a little while. Oh, let me give you an update on victim witness advocate. So, we went into the budget with a $30,000 cut to her grant. We had the meeting, it was about 2.5 hours the other night, and revisited those grants. We had 15 people in the office in Helena and several on the phone, public. So we had Jackie Jones, who's the lobbyist and attorney for the County Attorneys Association, number of county attorneys, victim witness advocate, Kelson Young was there. And they all added their comments. But basically, at the end of the conversation, It looks like ours is about a $4,000 less. So 96,000 will be funded by this grant for victim witness. It still has to be approved by the board, but I don't think that'll be an issue at all. I talked to Brooke, and because she does so much work for Mark County, she is going to talk to them about an interlocal that should more than offset the $4,000.
Oh, okay.
So, that budget should be good,
Okay.
yeah. And I'll leave it to her to decide what's right and fair with Mark County, perhaps the two can negotiate. But if it's a little bit more than the 4,000 that's lacking, it'd be nice to put that into a CIP. Because it's possible we're going to be looking at further reductions in some of these grants. And one of the reasons we have them is so that we can have time to plan on how to fund, if that were to happen. That's all right. And I sent you an email on the update of the victim witness
Yes,
money.
yeah, so that was one of the updates I was working on, with payroll and stuff this morning,
Oh, good.
so that because I gotta get the preliminary notice in the paper for our 2 weeks.
Yeah,
And so I was trying to make sure everything was done and ready, as ready to be for the preliminary.
now, I just shorthanded it for you guys. Corey thought it was a $4,000 cut, but Tina Chamberlain, who runs that program, said it's the exact same amount of money because there's a match there. I don't know if you saw either one of those. And then Brooke said she's gonna work with Mark County on an interlocal agreement because she's doing so much work for them. Be less expensive for them to just work with her,
Yeah.
and it would help her budget if she's doing work in Mark County anyway.
Mhm.
And Broadwater County citizens shouldn't pay for Mark County.
Yeah, I think she got, outside of her wages, I think she had her, with the work comp and the goals and things, she submitted the same for expenditures,
Okay,
so.
all right, good.
So it's an extension?
Yeah, but I don't know that we can make a decision yet. We're gonna have to address that, but we don't know what our mills look like. Yet. Guess what I would like to say is, let's just table that till we see what we get from mills, if we get some extras. And if not, then we address it through another means.
Okay. Let's see, Public Works part-time employee,
I think we approved that today. Already.
solid waste, we were just gonna move that temporarily over, see what happens with, the intercap loan.
Yeah, and after Debbie works her magic, I think you'll come to us and suggest the amount we need from PIL to balance that out, Debbie? Okay, that's on hold, okay.
So this law enforcement, they took the 2 vehicles out, right? And the
Yeah.
159, we don't need that.
Well, we put it into their CIP, and so it didn't, it's not, so they probably will still need it, I think at least one. But we put the money they wanna spend into their CIP, so it's not reliant on mills.
Oh, okay.
And to, maybe before you came down, Brandon discussed that they're looking into a lease program.
He did mention that this morning,
Okay, so.
so that could all change
Could all
everything.
change, yeah.
Which long run, it might be easier for them to budget for. If
Exactly.
it's all being taken care of, I kinda like that idea.
Yeah.
It's just a monthly, and everything's up to date, they buy back. You don't have to come up, like I said, with this big chunk of change every couple of years, or how do you squeeze the turnip to get a little more money? If it's part of your budget and work forward. You know, especially if, like for the city, right there, some of the city's donation could help that lease, whatever they do.
Public health. The school's not gonna do their, the school's gonna evidently take over all their. Better put some money in CIP, cause that's a disaster,
Disaster in the making?
I think so.
Yeah. If somebody who has experience with billing is already almost full-time, just doing the school immunizations, somebody with no experience is going to be drowning.
Yeah.
But I understand where they're at, I know they have to try it. So, yeah,
You would have to hire someone who's licensed to give shots. It could just be me or you.
right?
I don't,
Oh,
that could be a serious problem. If they think they're just gonna use an existing staff member to do it, unless they got their certification somehow.
From the conversation I had with Teresa, it doesn't sound like the school's doing the shots, they're just gonna do all the paperwork.
Yuck. Okay. I know how much they struggled, even when Linda was here. That's a lot of paperwork,
Yeah.
a lot of coordination. Okay.
So
They won't know
then-
till they try.
Yeah.
I think that's it, yeah.
So then they also had a $2,400 increase for Blackfoot, a $6,000 for 10 hours for respite care, and a market adjustment for Teresa.
Well, that one was, Michelle and I tried to talk to her on. In order to do that, she's gonna have to rewrite her job description. You guys are gonna have to approve it. And then it's gotta fit within the wage matrix. Just because that's what other public health office, nurses or officers are getting, doesn't mean we can just give it to her. And I know we've told her this a couple of years now. When Linda Campbell was here, she wanted market adjustments. Well, we've adopted the wage matrix. So in order to justify that, because that would mean possibly a new band, new job description, new point system, and everything to justify that. You can't just
Okay.
give it to her, because she's already at over 100%, I think, of the median
Oh,
in
okay.
that position, as she stands right now. So at best, she needs to start with a job description change.
So she needs to submit all that paperwork before we can do anything with an approval for that.
And I know we've told her that a couple of times,
Okay.
but I don't know if I don't know if we're not explaining ourselves well enough, or if she thinks she wants you guys to do her job description. She's gotta do it, because she knows what she do, then submit it to you to approve.
Okay.
And then we run it through the point system and come up with, because that's how Mary's job was done. That's how if anybody, point systems, market adjustments, by redoing your job descriptions, that can determine if there's gonna be a new band or if you're within the existing band.
So the Blackfoot increase, the discussion that we had with Mike the other day, does that 2,400 change cover that change or not? They needed to bump it up from 1,550
That's
to
right.
3,515.
Yeah, I wasn't tracking with you there for a minute, sorry. Yeah, their budget looks really strong, Debbie, but you found a mistake in it. Is it still looking strong enough to handle that? Is it 2,500 for the
2,500
year?
is what they had in here, but I don't know if that covers, like I said, I don't know if that covers that the new, if that just covers up their initial bump up, or does that cover their next bump up they have to go, because right now they can't get voice and computer same time, so they have to go to a higher level.
And because they're off-site from the courthouse, it is a little more.
Yeah.
I'm just not sure how much more, if that's something Mike told her, or if she's just guessing. I'm not sure, I'd have to check on that one.
Well, I don't think that was what Mike would have told her. He
Mm-mm.
might have told her that before, but I don't think that she was aware at this point of what that new bump up was gonna be. I think we
Because,
probably better take
and
it.
that was looking at everybody's budget, some people's, they increased that for their Blackfoot new utilities, the stuff, the internet and all that, and others didn't. So I'm not sure if everybody's aware of all that. So Michelle's been working on the bill and the splits. I'm just not sure how many are aware of that, because we're trying to split it out, so everybody's, kind of like we were before, everybody's got their equitable charge, or if they use what they have. And I know the clinic and the museum, you don't want that, some of that are separate. And so I'm just not sure on that one. I don't think I've ever heard.
Yeah, see, because extension and road solid waste and health will all have differences.
Yeah, I just don't know how much the increase was per each one of those sites, or cumulative effect.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard. Well, I guess we can ask Teresa, or Mike, or kind of get
Would
do
you
some research.
also- Would you review their budget and let us know if you think there are any reasons they couldn't handle that increase? Again, it looked good to me,
Yeah,
but I would defer to you as the expert.
yeah, Teresa did come by yesterday, and I did give her wage worksheets. There will be, because WIC went away, and divvying up the hours, and I told her to look at these percentage breakdowns. Public, general fund is gonna take a bigger hit on the wages, which is kind of the way it used to be. Because, you know, like I just explained to her, the grants only cover so much, so she needed to look at wages and grants, that the grant covers with wages and the expenditures in whole. Because if she needs X amount, like MCH for expenditures versus salary, we might have to adjust her salary line items. And I didn't do her wages with her market adjustment request. This
Okay.
is without it. So I wanted her to look at that. There is one of the, I think it's immunization, where some of the revenues were supposed to be received into there, and she hasn't. She's expensed out of there, but hasn't put some of the revenue back in there. So I gotta go look at that to determine where some of the reimbursements need to go versus her general health. But if she isn't spending out of them like she thought she was, and putting everything back into the general fund, we'll have to look at that too, because she asked me about that. So I think she was a little unsure of it too.
Okay.
Still learning, and Diane's back, so that'll help.
Yeah, yeah.
It's been a hard one for her to coordinate all that, especially with getting rid of WIC and the new respite, because we were asking about that. She said Geraldine can't take on the hours, so that's why she's looking at the 10-hour respite relief, because the grant would cover that. So we discussed that, and she was gonna look all that over and get back with me
Okay.
and adjust how many hours she wanted Geraldine to do versus the respite nurse, or respite care, to match the grant, in addition to what she's already getting for the homemaker grants. And then the PILT matching grant portion of it. So she's busy
Sounds
too.
good. Yeah. WIC, quick update. I talked to Brenda, who's the head of public health in Lewis and Clark County. They signed an agreement with Broadwater Health Center yesterday. They've been working on this for a while, but they wanted to assure us that WIC is in Broadwater County. They will have one day dedicated per month for WIC rather than once a quarter. And they have an RD of their own, so that's how they can do it. And they're gonna come down here and actually have clinic space. So, yeah,
Great.
it'll be exciting,
Oh, okay,
yeah,
good.
yeah,
Work out better for the program anyway.
I think so, yeah. And it was actually taking quite a bit from the general fund too, about $18,000 a year on top of the grant, so we may see a balance there a little bit, which would be good. That's all I have. Are we missing anything else?
What do we do if we get another surprise?
Roll with it.
And that, what would that do to our union contract and all this stuff?
Nothing. I mean, the union
It just-
doesn't care about how much money drive is to get the members benefits.
Everybody, so they would still get whatever we negotiated in the contract, is nobody would get the 3.9.
Yeah. Well, no, not necessarily. I mean, can we freeze again and not destroy the morale? Yeah, may not be the full, maybe it'd be a portion of that. But yeah, if we get a big surprise, we have to look
I
at
don't know
that
what
stuff,
stupid idea they can come up with to pull that again, but I wouldn't put it past them.
right? Yeah. I am encouraged by a 15% increase. I mean, regardless if we lose mills, that's still a huge, again, the 9% increase, loss of mills equals an increase of 3.9, we still came out to the good.
Yeah.
Because the value of the mill goes up, so you get less, but the mill is worth more, so you
Sure.
still gain money with fewer mills, essentially.
Right. And I think with the 2-year cycle, what we're gonna start seeing is what we saw 2 years ago and last year, and that is loss of mills, but an increase in value, and the next year, increase in mills. And then the next year, loss in mills, and then an increase. So I think we're gonna be a little bit more on a roller coaster than having a 6-year cycle, which you kinda had a better sense to plan.
Anything else?
No.
Okay, with that, I guess we will adjourn at 12:51. And I made a mistake and took some mail home yesterday, but it was specifically about what I was talking about, the department of using a GPS GIS system.
Oh,
Anchorage, Alaska, and some whole county in Illinois, that's how they do all their revenue, all their appraisals, all photo photography.
Wow.
That's how they do every bit of it. And if the state of Montana's gonna be on a 2-year rotation, that's what they're gonna have to go to. Cause you can't keep up with it every 2 years, it's impossible.
and not miss
Mhm.
all lots.
And not miss, exactly,
Yeah.
because that did exactly what they fly that and they get the picture, and if you have a new building,
Mhm.
you pay taxes on the building, plus if you didn't have a permit, they would've put it into the system, and you get paid for the permit.
There you go.
Smart,
Makes sense.
yeah.
Yeah.
Did Sean tell you that he bought a drone?
Oh, did he?
He's gonna be
Oh, did
using
he?
for his, yeah, inspections.
Well, and
Not a bad
that's,
idea, we might get bit by dogs less.
Right. Right.
was that his birthday present to himself?
It might have been. He bought it a couple weeks ago, so.
I know Kelly Morrison uses it all the time for his real estate
Yeah,
stuff.
it's kind of a in thing, what we're going towards.
They had one on the news this morning, I think they were in Whitefish, mosquito spraying,
Oh, yeah.
larvicide and
Oh.
mosquito spray, and everybody, this is the new way.
Wow. We talked about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, we watched them do it out at the fairgrounds,
Yeah.
remember, right? Looked, pretty promising.
So
And cheaper
John,
than a helicopter.
yeah, John Pond bought a drone and donated it to the school, so the kids could learn.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's the kind